and that's their preferred way that you get in touch with them. So you'll get that information later. And if there's any information that any of the speakers want to send out, they'll give that to us too, and we'll send that to you rather than try and have you take down every single thing that you hear tonight. But you'll get a full recording with the transcript and then anything that the speakers have. And with that said, I want to say thank you to all of our speakers for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Keenan at this point.
Well, good evening and welcome to all of our students and our speakers and any other guests that have joined us this evening. We're glad you're here, and we hope this is productive and you will find value in it. Before we get started, if it is easy for any of our students to do, would you please add your school, your college or university to your name so we can see who all is represented here? And for those of us that may have lost over the weekend, feel bad together. And for those of you that have won this past weekend, congratulations. No hard feelings. As like Mike said, we're going to have a discussion in the beginning and then Q&A, but we want this to be an open discussion. So if you have questions at any time, like Mike said, please put them in the chat and we'll try to catch them in a timely basis. Otherwise there'll be plenty of time at the end for you to ask questions. And with that, we are very grateful that we have 5 speakers joining us today. I'm going to just introduce them by their first names, and I will let them each give you their background, maybe tell you about their educational background, where they went to school, their military background. Did they, even if they had internships or wish they would have had internships, and then maybe tell you a little bit about their current role and where they're working. So with that, I'm just going to go whoever I see first, and it is the best dressed panelist we have tonight. Beau, I'm going to let you start first and introduce yourself to everyone.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, Keenan, and thanks everybody for being here today. So Beau Higgins. I am born and raised in New Orleans, and I have my little Houdat Florida Lee jackets on today. I went to University of Virginia and then right in the Marine Corps after that, and spent 25 years in the Marine Corps. I actually played football very poorly for UVA for a couple of years before really distinguished myself as an All-American in a fraternity house after that. I really kind of hit my stride. I am an LSU fan. They won this weekend and beat Ole Miss, so I'm still celebrating LSU's victory as well. For a military career, I spent 25 years in the Marine Corps. I was an intel guy in the Marine Corps, got to do made a bunch of deployments, 3 to Iraq, 3 to Afghanistan, Somalia, Bosnia, all the garden spots they sent us to back in the 90s and aughts and beyond. I retired from the Marine Corps 10 years ago, and I spent 7 years of those 10 years over at Amazon, where I supported all their veteran hiring programs. So Robin, who's here tonight, was one of the folks that is still with Amazon and working on those programs. But Amazon made a great pledge to hire initially 25,000 and then later on 100,000 veterans, which they successfully completed this year, actually. And they had a great program focused on hiring veterans, student veterans, military spouses, and beyond. I left Amazon about 1.5 years ago. I now work for a small company called Oplign that uses basically AI, machine learning, really, to match veterans to jobs and student veterans to jobs and internships. Super cool tool that's free for the student veterans, and it's on the NVLF website called Gradline, actually. And if you haven't checked it out, I certainly would encourage you to check it out. We can talk about that more later, but that is me in a nutshell. And I'm here in Tampa, survived the hurricane. We have power. School's back in session on Thursday. It's still a little of a mess out there. It was like Lord of the Flies for a while, trying to find gas and bread and water, but we were about back to normal. So that's me. So thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us. Emily.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be with you. Emily Armstrong. I'm with Huntington Bank, and I've been in the financial services industry for about 20 years. And the last 10 years or so, I've spent in the HR field. So I am a early career and internships director at Huntington. So I lead our rotation programs. I lead our internship program, as well as degree completion programs for colleagues who work at Huntington and are going back to get their degrees while they're working. So I definitely have an appreciation for how many people are trying to go through this life and feeling like they're pulled in multiple directions. So I personally do not have a military background other than I am the daughter of a veteran, and I have two military connected women who are on my team. So mother of an active duty Army individual, and also a spouse of a military husband. So I'm very close to that experience, and I'm so happy to be with all of you tonight, talking about the value of internships and talking about some best practices to get connected to an internship experience.
Thanks, Emily. Steve.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Steve Nicholas, also with Huntington Bank. It's a privilege to be here this evening and being able to share some stories and some best practices. Emily is going to be the expert in the intern part of it, but I think I can add some value. I've been in the military for 35 years, continue to serve as a reservist in the Air Force. I've been with Huntington now 15 years in a couple of different roles, but currently serve as a manager in our cybersecurity operations space. So it's been for me a really fun journey. I went to a Mac school here in Michigan. I live in Michigan, so I went to Central Michigan University with a business degree, not really understanding what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. But the military taught me a couple of things, and one is, never set your goals or your sight on just one thing, right? Have an open aperture, start to really experience, learn, listen. And that's what I did over the course of my career. So I've had a very diverse background, from being an entrepreneur, owning a franchise, to being in law enforcement, to finding my way back into the financial sector. Interestingly enough, while I was in college, I had an internship at a bank. Didn't really think I ever wanted to be working for a bank, but it was an available internship. But what that internship taught me was that being in the financial world isn't just working inside of a branch, but there are so many other things that a bank provides, and that kind of led me down a path of that entrepreneurial desire to just keep learning and keep wanting to figure out where I want to go. And someday when I grow up, I'll eventually know what I want to be or where I want to go. But I am so excited to be here tonight to share some history, but really proud to represent Huntington. I am a co-lead of our military business resource group, which is a dedicated group that's for military connected colleagues, families, serving the community. And it's been something that I've been passionate about for years, and been leading it at the enterprise level co-leading it for the last year, and just super proud and look forward to sharing, if we get a chance, sharing some of the opportunities that Huntington brings to military connected students. So again, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Mike.
Yes, Keenan, Mike, and all of NVLF, thank you so much for having me. My name is Michael Pett. I am a retired disabled veteran in the United States Army, where I spent 21 and a half years all on the enlisted side, 15 of which were active duty, and the rest was in the National Guard. And I'm a proud graduate of the University of Illinois. And so if it looks like I have hat head, it's because I do. But I also want you to see my eyes. Now, what did I do after I left active duty? I joined a small little consulting firm known as Accenture. And I'm kidding when I say small, because there's about 450,000 employees that work for this large organization. And I started out as a recruiter with a focus on the student veteran community. They're in the process of standing up a much larger military hiring strategy. About 6 months in, I ultimately took over the team and helped get across the finish line 5,000 veterans in 5 years in the consulting org. Later, Uber took notice and recruited me and poached me to build their global military hiring program. And up until 2 weeks ago yesterday, I was at the helm and recently decided to step away. Love the work that we do. We got a great bunch of panelists here that are going to share their stories and share their ideas and best practices. But what am I doing now? Now I sit on the advisory board for the Pat Tillman Foundation and Warrior Scholar Project, which really works continuously with the student veteran community. So I'm excited to be here tonight. I know Keenan's got a bunch of great questions and looking forward to working with my colleagues on this one. So Keenan, back over to you.
All right, thanks, buddy. Robin.
Hi. So I made the mistake of bringing my 15-year-old dog to work without remembering his food. So if you hear him nipping in the background, I apologize now. I keep giving him the stink eye, but that'll only go so far. Anyway, my name's Robin. I lead global military talent acquisition enablement for Amazon. Going back a million years to my school days, I am a born and raised Washingtonian in the state of Washington. And so I always wanted to be a teacher. So I went to Central Washington University to get my elementary education degree, but simultaneously enlisted in the Army and ended up getting an ROTC scholarship. So rather than starting as a teacher right after I graduated, I went on active duty. I like to say that I was first a military child because my dad was in the military. I was married to my husband. Well, I'm still married to my husband. Who was in the Air Force, which I don't count, but that's another inside joke between my husband and I. So I was a military spouse, then I was active duty, I was also reserve, mobilized reservist, and now I'm a retiree. So I kind of look at the military community from all those different lenses. Anyway, so I went on active duty right after college. So I guess my internship type activity was ROTC camp, because that's an experience where you learn about the Army and then end up going in full time. So I did that for a while. Like I mentioned, I then transitioned to the reserve. My journey since serving was I was actually Department of the Army civilian at Joint Base Lewis McChord for a lot of years, where I managed the transition program. So that's another lens through which I view all of this advice and the experience, because I understand the rules and regulations for transitioning service members and military spouses and sort of the programs that existed to support them. And then I came to Amazon. So I first joined and built the apprenticeship for the military community for Amazon Web Services. I kept hearing, I joke and say the 500th time I heard, we love military folks, but they've got this little tech gap, and if we could just train them. And I said, that sounds like an apprenticeship. So we built a U.S. apprenticeship for the military community, did that for about 3 years. Left and went back to the government, which is I don't recommend to anybody, and then returned to Amazon. And now I lead, like I mentioned, global military talent acquisition enablement. And a lot of what I do now, especially in the US, is support student programs and military hiring. So can't wait to talk about internships and the ways that we engage with the student community.
Well, Robin, I'm going to stay with you and just maybe have you start us off and just talk about, in general, why are internships important? And specifically, why are they important for military connected students?
Yeah, so I will tell you at Amazon, a very large portion of our what we would call early career talent comes from the campus programs. So they hire well over 50% of our early career talent from new college grad programs and internship programs. So that's where you're going to get the opportunity to, I think it was Michael who mentioned, maybe somebody mentioned they spent some time at a bank, and that's when they understood that it was not just about being a teller, right? So that's where you're going to really peek behind the curtain. You're going to interact with the team. You're going to live a day of the life like in person and understand sort of the culture, what your daily environment's going to be. Is it going to be collaborative? Is it going to be customer facing? Is it going to be team environment? All those things that are really going to matter to you when you find that first job out of college, right? It's not just about the paycheck, and you need to really understand the culture of that company, but not just the company, the team, right? And the actual role that you're targeting to go into. So an internship gives you that opportunity. For us, it's 12 weeks. So you have a full 12 weeks, full time, to work on the team, building projects, delivering projects, participating in team meetings, and making those connections. I will say the teams that host interns hold aside full-time requisitions to extend offers for those interns to return the next year. So they're fully expecting a very high percentage of their interns to return the following year and join the team as full-time employees. So I can't express how invaluable, at least at Amazon, an intern experience is for you as a college student. So definitely recommend at least one. If not, start as early as you can in the process. We sometimes bring people in right after the freshman year. We have several different programs that will bring people back year after year as they gain experience with that team. So,
Mike, anything you want to add to that? You maybe want to talk.
Yeah, I'd love to. So first things first, +1 to what Robin shared, right? The intern conversion route is the way a lot of large tech companies typically like to kind of pursue their full-time employment. And folks, the one thing I also want to caution you about is also the time of year, the fact that we are potentially going through some major administration changes politically. So you're going to begin to see the opportunities available look fewer and further between. It's not that the organizations aren't interested in hiring you, it's just they themselves are in a wait and see posture. So please take the advice from Robin, Steve, and Emily, and Beau, and myself very seriously, because the internship route is your pathway to full-time employment for a lot of organizations. So, but yeah, +1 to what Robin said.
Beau, anything you maybe want to add?
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd say about internships, first of all, and foot stomp, now is the time. Like, now is intern season. It seems crazy. I've had 4 kids, 2 that graduated college and 2 in college now, and I've been beating on them to be looking for internships right now. So I can't stress that enough. But I think the internship, certainly it's a great chance for the company to see you, but also for you to see the company, right? It's a try before you buy kind of program. Hopefully you're getting paid. Most internships, hopefully you're paid. But I can't stress enough the importance of finding a company where you feel like a cultural fit, and that is a great part of an internship. Is you can find out if this is the place. I mean, what I've found in general is that a lot of veterans can do the jobs in a lot of companies. Doing the job is not necessarily the hard part. Getting in is hard, but also getting into a place where you feel like you are part of that culture, and it's one where you see yourself in 10, 15, 20 years. Because if you check it out and you realize, yeah, it's okay, but that's what internships are great for, right? You're not locked in, so it's a nice way to try before you buy, similar to a SkillBridge program from that's folks that are leaving the military directly. So it's an amazing opportunity, but it's a two-way street. You're evaluating them as much as they're evaluating you. So keep that in mind as well.
Beau, to follow on just a little bit, it isn't just getting the internship at a specific company. When companies are hiring, just that experience is even as valuable. Even if you get an internship, at company A, but you decide that's not the place I want to work, that internship is going to be valuable to a hiring manager when you graduate and are out there looking for a job. Correct?
No, 100%. The internship itself is something you can add to your resume, whether you take a job with that company or not. It proves that you were competitive there, that you were able to do something there. They may ask you how it went, and you can, be honest about that. But that alone is something that you can add to your resume. And again, hopefully learn. Maybe you decide it's not a career that whatever it is, tech, banking, healthcare, doesn't matter. Maybe you thought you might like it, but it wasn't what you thought you would be. It's okay. That's what you're in the process now of learning, whether it's college classes or, on the job training. What an internship is, you can't go wrong with an internship. Even if a job doesn't work out, it has, second and third order impacts for you ability to get a job later on, whether you get the job in that company or want the job in that company or not on the back end.
Hey, Emily or Steve, I'd certainly like for you to contribute as well, but I'd also like for you two to talk about Huntington specifically and just sort of talk about what's the process at Huntington when you're looking in general for interns? What time of the year do you start? What time of the year? And you may have just put that in the chat. What time of the year do you have that wrapped up? And what are some of the important things then specifically military connected students can and should be doing during that process?
Absolutely. I can start, and then Steve would love to have you tag on. So first of all, just to add on to what all of the fellow panelists have said, I completely agree. The one thing I would add, just in terms of the basic value of the internship, is the connections that you build, and really at a purpose-driven, culture carrying company, like Huntington as an example, and I'm sure others are as well. A lot of the managers of interns take a keen interest in the intern as a person, as a human, and they recognize that not every internship ends up being the perfect fit. So I often have interns. We also do the same. We convert so many of our interns in to fill our early career pipelines. We also convert interns into rotation programs. So that is another avenue into even more learning. But it is not uncommon that if an intern has that experience where they're like, I really learned a lot. I valued the program. I valued the connections that I made, but this is not right for me. We'll often have mentors and managers from that program be, okay, well, what are you interested in? And how can I use my network to help you? And so that kind of connection is not uncommon. So with Huntington in particular, our process starts with posting our requisitions, and we do that in September. And Huntington, to further on the value of the internship, we have an enterprise-wide intern program, and I think that is something that adds a lot of value to people who may still kind of be figuring things out. So like Robin, it's not uncommon for us to hire rising sophomores, rising juniors, and not just the rising seniors. And we'll place interns in all facets of the company, but all of those interns are also working together on intern projects. We do segment overviews. So by the end of the 12-week program, all interns have gone through and experienced a little bit about every business segment in the company and how they work together, how the bank operates. And so those kinds of experiences are so helpful for learning. And so as our interns are coming in, all of them are applying for specific areas where they're most interested in working. We also have multiple locations. So those are some of the questions you can expect to see on the application is, well, it's one enterprise program. We want to know, are you interested in technology? Are you interested in cyber? Do you want HR? Or are you interested in more of a traditional finance area like commercial banking or wealth management? And what locations are most of interest to you? And we will take all of that data and we will match it up against where our intern hiring needs are. We'll start lots of phone screens. We'll be out at career fairs. We're doing events like this tonight where we're just getting the word out, bringing applications into the funnel. And then once we've done our screening by our team, then those candidates who are moving forward can expect to be slated for hiring manager interviews. And so as the hiring managers then go and look through resumes, decide who they want to speak with, they'll have some interviews before they make the selection. So we try to have our hiring done by end of the year. Realistically, some of it tends to carry into the following year. But a lot of those funnels, if you will, of applications are open. Ours have been open since Labor Day. And once we are confident that we have all the candidates that we can handle, right now we're already at 12,000. So some of these volumes get really, really high. So get yourself in the funnel. I can't encourage that enough. Then we'll unpost those while we continue to do screening and selection.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. The beauty of being with such amazing panelists here is the advice is just spot on. And the one thing that I would add from a perspective of the intern is, you go into the internship thinking that maybe this is what I want to do long term. But what you might find out week one, day one, week 4, is this isn't for you. don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be inquisitive. Don't be afraid to use that network that Emily's talking about. I know from, as being a hiring manager, there is, and I have several examples of interns that were interns on our team and came right back in as full FTE, and they were spun up, ready to go. It was a great, easy, efficient transition for everybody. I also know interns that were on a team, but had more, they just realized that wasn't for them. They had interest in something else. But as a hiring manager, I was able to, kind of ask the right questions, help mentor them, point them in the right direction, and, internally be able to pick up the phone and call the other hiring manager that didn't know about the intern, didn't know about the opportunity, and be able to link those up. So, there's nothing wrong with being honest with yourself, being honest with the team that you're working with, and saying, I love this, or, this isn't really what I thought it was, but boy, I'm really interested in that. Just be really transparent, be honest, be professional, and you'll find that the doors will just open up for you throughout the internship.
Mike, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to add something to what Steve and Emily kind of already alluded to earlier, right? Emily shared the idea of volume, right? And for y'all that are tuning in and are eager to maybe get at one of these amazing organizations, there could be a specific strategy here that I need you to kind of pencil down, and it's paying attention to your career center that's on your campus. A lot of these amazing organizations will post specific requisitions only eligible to your campus. So if that's the case, the only way to truly apply is through your career center. I'll give you a specific example. Had a ton of veterans very, very interested in internship opportunities, both at Accenture and at Uber, but they went on the uber.com or accenture.com university tab and applied through that. I understand it would make sense to generally do that, but anyone in the United States can apply to roles through those means. What you need to do is get a hold of your career center, get down there and visit it, find out where those roles are posted, and apply through that method, because the companies and the campuses have a specific agreement. So if you really want to increase your visibility, get down to your career center. Thanks, Keenan.
Hey, Robin, would you mind talking about sort of hold on one second before you do. Emily, you mentioned rotational programs. Can you explain what those are before I ask Robin to talk about Amazon?
Yes, absolutely. I think rotation programs are something that Huntington is newer to, but we're having great success so far. And it's absolutely something that we're going to continue doing. So we have like a finance rotation program, and that's the first segment. But again, if finance isn't your jam, we're going to have many other areas where we will have rotation programs as well in the future, learning from this first go around. But I can speak to how we think about rotation programs, which is at Huntington, we're an extremely collaborative culture. And the value of a rotation program is that you get to work with a number of different people during a training session. So for us, that's a 2-year period, where at the end of 2 years, when you're placed in a full-time, more permanent role, you will have had 3 different rotations on different teams, learning different pieces. And what we are looking to do, at least on the finance side, is build utility players, people who are developing more transferable skills. They are not becoming siloed and connected only in their own discipline. And they are learning a little bit about a lot of things. And that is really, in addition to just core leadership potential, which all of you as military connected individuals are already bringing to the table, it gives you a wider variety, more of a skill set, and deeper connections, so that when you get into your role, you're that much more powerful and you're going to accelerate through the organization so much more quickly. So again, Huntington's rotation program, we hire every summer, and it's a 2-year program. So we always have a year 1 and a year 2. And then as those cohorts start to work together, there's mentorship components, there's 8-month rotations, there's some that are program wide, some that are more cohort driven. and they're all learning experiences that are experiential, exposure, and education. That's another thing that a lot of these intern programs, Huntington included, are very skilled in doing. Those are the 3 E's of learning, if you have not heard that before, where at least 70% of what you do is through experience, and that's how we learn. 20% is exposure, and really 10% is that formal education. So what you're getting now as education is super important, and then companies can help you earn the rest of that through really valuable experience and exposure.
Mike asked me to follow up and industry wide, are rotational programs common, and are they growing in various industries? Like, how did Huntington come to start this type of program? And I've heard of them before, but I haven't heard of them a lot.
There's mixed reviews on rotation programs, to be completely honest. I started in a rotation program, so I've been a fan because I started in financial services in a rotation program, and it was invaluable for me. They can be expensive, and there's a lot of opportunity for them to not necessarily get a return on investment. So in some cases, you'll hear things like, well, rotational programs don't work or rotational programs don't last. But we've been doing a lot of research at Huntington, and we are very optimistic because these rotational programs are meeting an objective that would otherwise be really hard to obtain, which is exposure in a number of different related areas to break down silos and build relationships and ultimately create utility talent. So there will be different perspectives about rotational programs, but me as a product of one myself, and then also having the benefit of building this one at Huntington, I'm certainly a fan, especially when you have an executive advocate that is willing to make that investment in students.
Great.
If I could just chime in on that too, I think it's interesting having I work with multiple companies. Banks in particular seem to do more of the rotational programs, and to the point I think that Steve made, like, you think, oh, bank, I'm gonna be a teller. Well, there's so much more that a bank does. You have no idea. Where a lot of companies, there's not a lot of variation maybe in the jobs depending on how big they are, but banks in particular, I mean, JP Morgan has a program, Bank of America has a program. I mean, that's where I think you see the growth of that. GE used to have, or probably still does, the JLLP program. There's a few out there. They're not a lot, and I think they are very much in industries where, again, that people really don't have a good perspective of what all the different jobs entail inside the company. We don't really have one at Amazon per se, I would say, Robin. That, I mean, nothing to speak of. Big company, but we kind of want you in your job, and we stick you in that job, and you work there for a while, right? So again, not good or bad. I mean, well, I guess I would say if you have the ability to do the rotational program, it's awesome, right? Because you have the chance to try multiple places to take a look at before you make a call. But they are relatively few companies that offer them, is what I've seen across the board.
Thanks, Beau. And I'm going to come back to you after Robin, but I want Robin to sort of, if you wouldn't mind, talk about internships at Amazon. What's the timing? What's the process? And specifically, I know that you have internships specifically for military connected students. Talk about that as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Real quick about the rotational thing. We have rotational programs once you're a full-time employee for several lines of business, but not as an internship. So just to be clear to Beau's point.
Yeah,
as
same
an
at
intern,
Huntington.
Got
Yep,
it.
I should be clear that. Yep, same at Huntington.
Got it. So our process, as I posted in the chat, I wish I had them all. I'm jealous that Emily hasn't posted. They're supposed to be posted any day. So we post our internship recs right around this time of year, and it's just a race to the finish. Honestly, we move as quickly as we can to fill them. If they're still open in February, we're very quickly approaching, go time. So internships will start between May and July, just depending, and they'll end between, 3 months later. But for a lot of our internships, there's going to be several steps. So the first is you have to pass the resume review. So they'll have a very specific, you know, your degree is going to be conferred between this and this date. You're studying this type of discipline. So please, please, please look at the basic qualifications. Make sure that you're in alignment with those and that your resume clearly shows that you meet those basic qualifications. I find a lot of my military candidates assume that people know a lot more, that the recruiters can sort of read between the lines. Don't assume that they can understand that your background and experience equates to what's listed on the basic qualification. Just very clearly write that out. That's the first thing. If you pass the resume review, many of our internships have what's called an online assessment, just depending on the role. So that might be your second gate. And that basically is a series of both cultural competencies and technical assessments to see where you land on a rating scale. And depending on how high you get, you'll either move straight to on-site or you might have a couple of phone screens. What I see my military students doing is not taking the assessment. You're taking yourself out of the running. Don't be afraid of the assessment. Right on our website, there's study materials, there's practice exams. Get yourself ready and take the assessment because, as I mentioned, we fill them as fast as we can. If you don't take your assessment, you're going back in line behind all those other people that are moving through the funnel, right? So you might have an online assessment. Don't be afraid of it. Prep for it, take it. After that, again, depending on how you score, you might get a recruiter phone screen and a hiring manager phone screen, or you might go straight to what we call it on-site interviews, but they're all virtual. But basically, they're behavioral-based interviews with a couple of team members, and you can look up our leadership principles. Just Google them. There's 16 of them. Our interview questions are all behavioral-based. We expect you to answer in the STAR format, so situation, task, action, result. And if the panel of interviewers is inclined to bring you on, you'll get an offer for the internship. So those are several steps, and it takes some time to get through them. So again, backwards plan, make sure that you're competitive and get your application in right away. So as Keenan mentioned, there are just internships that are posted across all of Amazon, 100%. But because my role is Global Military Talent Enablement, I've got roles specifically for the military community. So most of them are software development engineer. I'm going to not lie, I have about 350 of those just for the military community next summer. And I struggle to find the people. So if you're studying any sort of computer science or IT degree, please be on the lookout for my internships because we want you. In addition to internships, I really quickly want to mention the other way we hire from campus programs. So we also hire what's called a campus FTE. So this is a new college grad. So again, this is going to be a full-time role, but you have to have graduated within a very specific time frame. Right now today, I have a rec open for 45 software development engineer campus military FTEs, and I can't find anybody. So same application process, you apply, resume review, online assessment, and then a series of interviews, but that's for people who've graduated. So whether you're, if you're listening right now and you're like, oh shoot, I didn't get an internship, all is not lost. We have campus or new graduate roles as well. So be looking for those as well.
Great, thank you. Hey, Beau, let's talk about service grad line and Oplign for a second and tools like that. As a military connected student, how do I use service grad line or Oplign to find internships that may be out there, specifically targeting military connected students?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just put a link in the chat that goes actually to the NVLF Gradline page. Super cool tool. If you haven't checked it out yet, I certainly encourage you to check it out. Free resource for our student veterans to go in there and basically you add in, it'll ask you about your military history, then it'll ask you what you're getting your major in and ask you kind of what classes you're taking. And based on what you enter, it will match you up to both jobs and internships. It's great because a lot of times you don't know what companies are offering internships, right? The tool we have is scraping multiple companies' websites, pulling down internships that are open for students, veterans, and it's all there. So it's an automated way to, in a matter of 5 minutes, you can go in, build a profile, and match yourself to open jobs. So again, I think that's one of the biggest challenges of internships is just figuring out where they are, and there's lots of companies out there that you may never have heard of. That offer internships that may be in a field or in a location that you're interested in. Again, so the tool allows you to search by location, by job type, and by company at the end of the day. So again, free resource that there's no guarantee you will get the internship, but at least if nothing else, you can be aware that an internship is there, and then potentially, which is similar to any job, have the ability to network in, talk to somebody over there, ask more about it. And that's how you get a job. And sometimes how you get an internship is not just applying through the ATS system of a company, but finding someone on the team you can talk to help kind of shepherd your application or guide you through the process. So again, networking plus application, right? I mean, applying is important, but the networking piece certainly helps if you can find someone in whatever company you are looking at to be a resource for you, to be an advocate for you. That's going to make your chances exponentially better to get that internship. So again, I encourage you to check it out. There's other resources out there for sure. This one's one again that NVLF has up and posted that I encourage you to check out. And certainly if you have any questions about it, we're happy to you reach out to me anytime and happy to share more about it.
I want to make, Ryan had a question. He said, I think.
Hey, Keenan, can I add one quick thing on
Yeah,
Oplign?
sure.
Mike, I just want to say one reason or a couple of reasons we chose Oplign was we think it's the most comprehensive tool that will capture your actual valuable military experience. And then the other thing, no matter what campus you're on, you probably have a campus system of Handshake or Simplicity or another one. All of those jobs are in Oplign. And then they have a lot more. So that was the other piece that we like. The only exception might be what Michael said, is if this company has an agreement with your campus and the only way to apply is through your career center. So use your career center, use Oplign, use the sites of the companies that you're interested in as well.
Yeah, these definitely aren't either or. You should be using all of them. Ryan had a question, and I think it was probably Robin or Emily can answer this, but I'm sure all of you, if you want to, feel free. Are there any important keywords that stick out or hinder resumes when AI filters them out?
So I did respond to Ryan in the chat,
Okay.
I mean, but from my perspective, what's kicking people out of the system is not AI. It's for most of our roles, there will be a series of questions after you apply that say, are you graduating within, this time frame? Yes, no. Are you getting a degree? And it's asking you key questions that are pointed straight at the basic qualifications. And if you say no, you aren't graduating in this time frame, or you aren't getting a degree in one of these things, the system will kick you out at that point. And at that point, no recruiter is going to look at your resume because you disqualified yourself by saying you don't meet the basic qualifications. So that's where, when I'm talking to my military candidates, again, it has to be on your resume very clearly that you meet the basic qualifications, but then also answer those qualifying questions correctly. Because if you don't, there's nothing anybody can do after that. Once you've said you don't meet the basic qualifications and you're rejected, we can't have you reapply to the role. It's, you have to go somewhere else, or you have to apply for a different role at that point. So just read them very carefully, answer them honestly, obviously, and make sure your resume reflects the experience that is on those basic qualifications.
And I will add to that, and Emily or Robin, you can tell if you agree or disagree. It's not necessarily that there are words that AI uses to kick you out. It is every resume needs to be tailored to that specific job opportunity. And you're going to see keywords in that specific job opportunity that you then need to make sure appear in your resume for that specific job. So literally every time I look at my resume and I apply for a job that might be of interest, I'll go through that job description, pick out some keywords, and then make sure somewhere in my resume where I'm describing what I've done in the past that I use those words. And so it's really incumbent upon you. It's time consuming. We know your students, don't have a lot of time. Especially if you're a non-traditional student where you may be married or a parent, but it's all part of the process that will help you hopefully land at least the interview for a job you might be interested in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think everyone is navigating this wild world of AI, and in full transparency, banks tend to lean more on the side of being conservative, and there is risk associated with AI, especially in the human capital space. So we have not been able to adopt AI yet, but we
Good.
are going through the thick of it of how to utilize responsible AI. And I completely agree with everything you're saying. It's not like keywords universally. It's really tailored to specific jobs and qualifications. And so, Keenan, I think that's very good advice.
Great. Well, we want to get allow the students to ask some questions before our hour is up, but I wanted to sort of put this out to the group, and anybody can answer and give examples. And maybe Steve will have, I'll start with you because I just, if you have some best practice examples you'd like to share with the students tonight when it comes to, internships, applying for an internship. I think Mike already gave one, which was make sure you understand what's posted on your campus as well, because those are specifically targeting the students on your campus. But, if any of you just want to talk about best practices or things you've seen that would be important for all of our students to hear or know about.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick and just to kind of jump on a little bit what was just said. Back 100 years ago when I applied for an internship, it was people driven. You had to apply, went to somebody's desk, they sat at the desk, they read your resume. There was this human interaction. In today's world, and this is coming from a cyber guy, right? We are, especially at the bank, we are kind of filtering AI out. It's coming, but we're working more on the risk side before we implement it. But you have to remember when you're applying, it's a job to apply. What I would discourage you from doing is just blasting out a resume to everything out there, right? Like I would recommend, and I've seen success in the interns that have worked on my team. The success comes from really kind of looking at what you're interested in and specifically tailoring your resume to those job descriptions, just as Keenan mentioned. I can't stress that enough to make sure, because what happens is that when it does land on, into Emily's hands, and then it gets into a hiring discussion, you could look at a resume and you can tell the candidates who have put time into researching that position, researching that company, researching that culture. And when you get the opportunity to have the interview, it is night and day when instead of just interview questions, tell us about this, it becomes a dialogue, it becomes a conversation. And you can pick up instantly on the candidates who have put time into the research, time into tailoring their resume, time into coming prepared to that interview with questions, not about simple thing, right? You don't come asking what should I be expected to do, but here's the value I can bring to your team because I've researched, I've talked, whatever it is that goes into that application, right? So best practice, know what you're applying for, tailor your resume for that position specifically. Come to the process prepared for a conversation of what value you bring, how you fit to the culture, and what attracts you to that particular company or opportunity. And I assure you, when you start to approach, internships that way, it's going to lead into, a career very much aligned to what your passion is, and where you want to invest your time is where the company also wants to invest their time and money, and that's growing you from that intern to a lifetime of fruitful employment.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Just a couple of final points from me. Bottom line is do it early, do it often, whatever it is, right? Engage with the campus teams that come to visit your schools, right? Find out when they'll be on campus, go and speak to them. Ask them for what the policies and processes are for getting into those open requisitions. And then when it comes down to the resume, one thing that I want to share, obviously Oplign is a wonderful tool. Please take advantage of that. Absolutely. But then read the job descriptions. Look for language that's used that might be part aligned with their mission and vision and values of that organization. And then use careful language extraction when you're speaking to your background, your experience, and the competencies that you possess. Bottom line is, it says about the role, what you'll do, okay? If you've done those things, maybe use some of the language that's been used in those job descriptions to help the reader, i.e. the recruiter or the hiring manager, understand that you would mesh well in that culture. Those are just some easy tips and tricks that you can do, but find out Career Center, Oplign, and whatever those companies come to your campuses, engage them early and often.
That's great. Last thing, and if you have questions, raise your hand. Feel free to come off mute and ask it if nobody's got their hand up. You know, why is, as a student, why is it important to also have a LinkedIn profile? And I'm going to tell everyone who's on this webinar tonight that when you're done, if you don't have one, the first thing you should do is go create a LinkedIn profile for yourself. But, you know, any of our panelists, why is a LinkedIn profile also an important component of this process?
So I'll go. A lot of our recruiters we are using Oplign. I put that in the, especially for campus, but a lot of our recruiters still do searches on LinkedIn for campus candidates. So that's one. So they will find you if you're on LinkedIn. But two, somebody mentioned, you know, building your network. If you look for anybody at Amazon who's got #warriors@Amazon, that's somebody affiliated with our affinity group. If you can connect with one of them and have a cup of coffee or a virtual chat, that's golden. I think we've beat this horse dead, but every company has a different culture. Getting that inside scoop from somebody who's walked a mile in your shoes is invaluable information in your research as you're pursuing an opportunity. So build your network, connect with, if you're interested in Amazon, look for #warriors at, and then also our recruiters can find you on LinkedIn as well. So.
And I'll just say, I mean, look, LinkedIn is just like table stakes for getting a job. Like if you don't have the time to make a LinkedIn profile, people are going to think something may be a little off. I mean, it's just what you do these days is you have a LinkedIn profile as part of your professional development moving into, you know, a career, right? It's obviously used a ton by recruiters to find people for sure, but it's not the be all end all. It doesn't necessarily find you a job. I said, what Robin was saying, I think is so spot on. It's about you being able to find people, hopefully your peers, folks that you serve with that are now at those companies that are in the Warrior Resource Group. You know, find a person that's in the company that you are targeting, reach out to them and say, hey, I was also in 11 Bravo. That those are the guys that are going to help you out. The guys that have had, or gals that are going to help you out, right? The people that have done the same thing that you have done, have the similar experiences that are now, you know, in the companies that you were interested in. That's what the network is about. It's not as much about finding the job. It's about finding the person you can talk to help you kind of get someone to pull you through the system. Because again, more often than not, and I probably speak for every company here, just applying randomly with a spray and pray system to the ATS is not going to work most of the time. Can it work? It might, but that's all you're doing. You're going to be frustrated at the end of the day. So, you know, use LinkedIn to find people that can help pull you along in the process. And that will really, you know, give you, again, exponentially help your chances to getting a job, internship, or whatever it may be.
And to add on to what Beau said, because I agree 100%, you also, the alumni of your institution, same thing. You know, there are alumni of your institution that if they work at that a company you may be interested in or want to apply to, that are going to be willing to help you out just because you're going to school where they went to school. So they are also another resource. But one important thing, Cole, I'm going to ask you to come off of mute and ask your question because I think it's an important one. And I want to make sure that you ask it and I don't miss anything. But before you do, it's important that whatever you put on LinkedIn matches what's on your resume. You can't have a resume that looks different from your LinkedIn profile, because somebody is going to eventually catch that, and that's going to eliminate you more times than not. So, Cole, can you come off of mute and ask your question?
Yeah, I apologize. I'll give the short version on here. So taking a pay cut or accepting a volunteer internship may not be feasible for some military connected students. What advice would you offer to students facing these challenges, aside from rotational programs? And also, while people may relocate for a job, it's less likely for an internship. Are there programs or resources out there to address this concern?
I'll start. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Emily.
Okay. So I do think that it's not as common to have volunteer intern programs. I think more programs that I see are paid programs. So while the wage may not be as high as it will be full time, I think the starting wage for a Huntington internship is going to get you over the $21, $22, $23 an hour range, dependent upon location, or even higher depending on the industry. I will also say that relocation, that is something that I think utilizing your tools. So, we heard about Oplign tonight. We also heard, what we haven't talked about yet is Handshake, which is another valuable tool. It isn't specific to military connected students, but it does. A lot of employers are using Handshake, and it allows you to look at for opportunities that are in your community and really be going after those or prioritizing those first. I will say that for the internship specifically, that is where we will more frequently see like housing stipends, relocation stipends that are offered for interns, where we know that somebody is not going to pick up everything and move for 12 weeks without having some compensation to help them. I recognize that for military connected families, it's not as easy as one college student who doesn't have a family or kids, or so. Completely appreciate that. But I do think that there is more of an attempt to offer some of those stipends if there is relocation expected. But I would also say try to look for those, use Handshake or Oplign or other resources to find those internships that are in your community.
Yeah, I was just gonna say ours are all paid, and we actually fly people to the location and house them. So I get it would be a hardship to be away from your family, but we cover all of your costs. And now I'm sure everybody's heard, Amazon has instituted return to office, so there's fewer and fewer virtual positions. So just read the description and understand where the opportunity is going to be, and make an informed decision about if that's something you want to pursue or not, because there will be an expectation that you're in the office when you convert to full time. So, but at least from us, you're not going to be having a financial burden to take an internship. So
we are over time, but if you can stay, we may take a couple more minutes. Is there anyone else with any other questions? Either come off mute or raise your hand.
I'll ask a question that we get a lot from students, and anyone can answer it, but folks that are in the Guard or Reserve and that have some summertime requirements, how can they deal with that? And should that, a lot of times they just say, well, that just rules out an internship for me. And that's the wrong answer, I know, but any tips that you can give for folks that are in that situation?
Got a few tips for that, Mike. So one, my last billet was within ROTC command, and that was something that kept coming up for a lot of folks, right? So at the end of the day, if you're in the Guard or Reserves, you have the ability to speak to your commander. You can let them know you get that drill schedule plenty in advance. So ultimately, what you can do is you can backload your AT, you can do a home station AT. You're going to need to work with your commander and your leadership team to get that adjusted if you really do want to make that internship a reality. Now, from an employer perspective, at the end of the day, most organizations are ESGR or USERA compliant, so they will respect any and all obligations that are required by the military for that potential employee. But it is on that potential intern to make sure they are doing the right thing. There's a lot of veterans that work within these organizations, so please don't try and wait till the last second and pull the wool over anyone's eyes. You've got to be diligent. You need to be proactive. But if an internship is something that you're desperately going to need in order to gain a full-time position, then you can back or front load that annual training or even do home station to where you're somewhere local. So there's a couple of different options for that.
Well, with that said, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. This has, as always, been an informative hour, and I think all of our students get something great out of it. Before I turn it back over to Mike, I want to tell all of our students, if you have time tonight, half hour after sundown, go out and look in the west. There's a comet out that is brighter than anything you're going to see, and it won't be back for 80,000 years. So, so it may be something cool to go out and see, but thanks everyone for coming, and I'll turn it back over to Mike for some closing words.
Yeah, I want to thank all of our speakers tonight, and to let them know this usually happens quite a bit. You may get some follow-up from the students here tonight, but this will be going out to 78 schools and about 30,000 students in the next few days. So you may get a lot more after that, after they've had some time to watch the recording. But we really appreciate your time, and thank you for that. And the students, thank you for investing in your future. You made a smart choice. And if we can help going forward, please let us know, and you'll see a follow-up from myself and Laura here in a couple of days. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.